Been a bit since I've done one of these, but back for a tier list. This one should be shorter. We are doing StarCraft 1 units. I never played StarCraft 2. StarCraft 1, I played when it first came out, whenever in the mid to late 90s. There was the original game, which I did have, and then there was an expansion, the Brood War expansion, which eventually I got. I think I started playing at a friend's house who bought the original and who was way more into like computer video games than I was at the time. And so probably started to play more of the multiplayer first and didn't do the campaign and things until I got the game. But essentially, what we would do is we would go hang out over at his house. They had like two computers. We would use like a LAN and play in the one building together back then, and then BattleNet became more of what we used as we went forward. Though you'd run into lag and those kind of things where if you didn't have good enough internet connection, you'd struggle. So we'd still play like local games. Um, then, for the most part, I wasn't good at StarCraft. I wasn't bad, but I wasn't like a hardcore StarCraft player to where I learned to use hotkeys and the right strategies and whatever else about it. I just like to play. We also had the map maker. I remember back then of building maps. You'd build maps that like forced you to fight right away or were hard to get to the other person, or you'd have like unlimited resources or very few resources. So just a lot of different types of games. Those were always fun. And then Brood War came along, had more units. The story was better. I don't think I played the campaign until the full Brood War game came through, but I did end up playing all the campaign eventually, which was awesome. I enjoyed that part too. But yeah, played and then it just dropped off. Didn't go play like after college or in college or anything. So played StarCraft a little when I was younger, and then now I'm playing again. There's a remastered version that's been out for a while that I've picked up and started playing with some friends. So I've gotten reacclimated a bit. I'm sure I'll still struggle with some of the names on here with them as we go. Hopefully not. But the other part of this, like I created some tiers that are my favorites to use, ones that I think are fun to use, ones that I like to use. So the difference there would be like fun to use is I want to build them and use them, whereas like to use is like, I need them and I enjoy playing with them when I have them. And then okay to use are those that I like have to use or don't mind using. And then I have don't like to use. So those that I probably won't build unless I have to, or aren't my favorite to like deploy within the battle. Not even necessarily that I'm the worst at. That might be a part of it, but it's because I don't build them as much or play with them as much. And again, I'm not good with like using hotkeys or special abilities on some of these. I'm terrible where, you're like, oh my gosh, that's like the best power you can have in the game. Well, I suck at using it, so it doesn't really matter. Some of it will be around like how easy I find them to use versus them frustrating me, which does come into play depending on the types of map and stuff. But I'll try to be fair about making sure that I don't just like take it down too much because of a certain event or anything that I had in the past. Okay, so I think there's only about 41, 42, something like that of these. Hopefully, I didn't miss any. I just got the little sprites from some website. So the first one that we have, so we obviously have Protoss, Zerg, and Terran. The Protoss being the more technologically advanced, the Zerg more animalistic or whatever, and then the humans are the Terrans. So the Protoss are first. We have the Arbiter. So the Arbiter is usually a later game build. I'll also say some of this will be about like how hard it is to get to building or how long it takes to actually build once you are making it wherever it's getting made. Not that that's a huge factor, but I think it just does play into like how willing am I to build it and try to use it. So an Arbiter is later in the build. It is Not very effective from a fighting standpoint. It does shoot. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are like, oh, that's exactly this much damage, and it's got this. I don't know any of that crap. I just know that it doesn't do much damage, and it is cloaking, though. It cloaks others around it, which is a helpful thing when you've got, carriers or other things around that you want to protect. The problem is it then becomes the main target and can get wiped out pretty quick if you're not protecting it. The other thing is, like, you can't have two arbiters and they cloak each other. Seems logical. They don't. I've tried that multiple times. And then they have a couple of cool abilities. I don't use one of them, which is like stasis. Probably should, but it essentially stops, I think, the units from moving. I don't think you can shoot them either, but I could be wrong. And then there's recall, which is where you can pick a group somewhere else and it pulls them in right to that section. I think it's a pretty cool ability. I don't use it a whole lot. I've used it a little bit when I'm just screwing around, but I don't think, like, in a practical fight I've been very good about deploying an arbiter. But I find arbiters fun to use. I do like to use them in battle, but I also like their abilities and to move them around and guard some of the things that I have. So I do find them fun to use. I'll probably recalibrate some of these. I don't want to get, as always with my tier videos, I don't want too many to get up high, but I do like to use the arbiter. So it'll probably be between the fun and like, depending on where the others sit. Okay, we have an Archon, or Archon, or however you pronounce it. I think it's Archon, but I don't know. So this comes when you combine two Templars, High Templars, I think. They're down farther down here, this guy. But when you build two of those, which take a lot of gas, then you combine them together and you get one of these dudes. So they're a big ball of energy. They don't have much health, but they got a ton of energy. They shoot little ball lightning, close range lightning. I think they're really cool looking, and I like to make them. Uh, when I deploy them, I don't use them very effectively. I don't think. I don't use them much as part of like an army with other units. If anything, I'll just try to build a bunch of these blobs, and that tends to be a common theme with me. I build a group of the same things, which isn't good. But yeah, so Archons I like whenever they're together and in a group. And I'll have that in the fun to use section. I'll go ahead and move Arbiter down to like to use just so I don't start bunching, but I do like Archons. They look cool. They're pretty effective when they get in a group and get going. All right, Battle Cruiser. Battle Cruiser's Terran. So the first two are Protoss. Battle Cruiser, uh, later build, Starport. You got pretty good bit of pretty heavy tank mode, like in this, right, where there's a lot of health. But they are susceptible to some things. You can get scourged or from the Zerg, or lightning from the Protoss, and take hits pretty quickly. But battle cruisers, I very much like to build fleets of, if I can get to that point and protect myself long enough. I find if I get to about 8 of them, I can be pretty effective in pushing most things off, because you can shoot down a lot of the uh, attacks that are more like, scourge or whatever coming at you. I also, the thing I'm terrible at, because I don't pay attention to them enough when I'm attacking, is just splitting them. And if you can get to the point where they're like split enough to where if somebody's trying to lightning you or use plague or something, you might lose one or two, but you still have your others that can take out that unit, and then keep pressing forward. So battle cruisers are one of my favorites to use. That's definitely one of the they're a heavy attack ship, so probably a lot of people like them. All right, these are the brood, I think, that come out when a queen from the Zerg shoots an organic unit. I think maybe. No, I think you can do it with like a tank or Goliath too. I can't quite recall, but anyway, queen shoots, and two broods split off. They're pretty weak. They don't do much damage, but they take out that unit, which is good. And then they just keep attacking until they're put down pretty quickly. But it's a nice little annoying attack. I think that's more attributed to the queen, though. So the brood themselves, I'd say, are okay to use. I just let them go if I make them. I don't use it a ton. It'll be more if I see like a high Templar floating around and I'm just like, I want to get rid of that guy because he's going to lightning me when I come through. I'll use a brood. All right, carrier. Carrier's Protoss. Carrier has it's a late build. It's got a bunch of interceptors, so you have to build little interceptors that cost their own minerals. You start with 5, you get an upgrade for like 8. This is very much like the battle cruiser, where I build fleets and like to get a lot of them better deployed when I space them out a little bit while they're still within attack range of each other to help. But they're very effective at kind of crowd control. Much better to use, I think, when I'm like targeting specific things, so they're not just shooting everything and it's like, I want to take that thing out. It's like, boom, done, next thing, next thing. So I try to be a little bit more discerning of what they're attacking if I'm using them. I like to partner that with the arbiters, where you can kind of protect it from the front, and then it's got interceptors running all around it to maybe protect them a little bit more. So carriers in my favorite to use category for sure. All right, a lot of Protoss early. Corsairs. So Corsairs, I think these came in Brood War because I don't remember them in the original. So they've got a little gun and they shoot fast, just little blips. They're very fast and good for scouting, as well as they have a very effective disruption web, which shoots on the ground and stops like cannons or things from firing, or missile launchers at your ships. I suck at using that. I never use that, and I very rarely use Corsairs. Um, I don't find them to be as effective for me as like scouts, um, because I just don't deploy them correctly, I'm sure. But they're also a pain in the ass when I'm playing like a computer who's very good at using this. They'll come in with like 10 of these things and just disruption web my whole base, and I'm in trouble. So I am not a huge fan. I'll put them down in the don't like to use. I think it's like a better unit than a brood, but it's the pain in the ass part of me trying to deploy it and use it effectively that I don't like. Okay, a Dark Archon. Dark Archon's a combination of 2 Dark Templar. They're right next door. The probably hard to see because they're cloaked, but Dark Archons have a couple of abilities. I don't even really remember one what it's called, but it like swarms around a couple of units and I think keeps them still. And then the other one is around mind control, so it takes over an enemy's vessel. Uh, I don't build these or use these very much at all. It's not that I don't like them. I think they're cool. I'm not effective at deploying them. I don't sit there and wait for an enemy to attack and then, steal their stuff a lot. Now, I don't play anymore against like humans very much, or haven't, which allows for some different dynamics where you can kind of catch them off guard. Whereas the computer, it's pretty predictable, like they're only going to have X number of carriers or battle cruisers or whatever that you might want to take, or steal a tank or something, a reaver. But at the same time, like they can be effective, I think, if you use them in the right form. I'll have it in the okay to use, because I wouldn't mind. I'd probably, if I was playing myself, have like 10 of these and then just steal all my carriers and start attacking. But it's probably not a good use of your limited characters that you can have. All right, the Dark Templar. So the Dark Templar are not, they're kind of like mid build, I think, of like you build zealots and dragoons first, and then you get the Dark Templar once you get to a few more buildings. But they are cloaked and they slash with their little psionic blades or whatever. They're fun to use, I think. I'm going to have them in my fun to use category. I like to build them and then try to figure out a way to take out the enemy's, method of detecting my cloaking. That can be hard to do, and I think it's more effective depending on the type of of opponents you're facing, and they're probably a little bit better defensively even, because if you're in your own base and they're not Terran, like scanning your base, they've got to get an overlord in there or an observer in there, and it can be tough. And so you're just whacking away at them a bit while they're trying to infiltrate the base. But if you get enough of them and really go after it, they're pretty strong and take out like Protoss cannons pretty quickly, or sunken colonies, those kind of things. So I do like to use the Dark Templar. All right, Defilers. Defilers are Zerg. They're late. They've got a couple of abilities. One, I'm gonna get these wrong. One's like Dark Swarm, which I've never been really effective at using, but it's pretty cool actually. It just puts a swarm over a group where nobody can attack or be attacked. So it's like if you got a horde of something shooting at you, it's like whoop, and that just stops it for a while. But then they also have plague, so they'll throw a plague on a large group of enemies, and it sucks out their life to where they're just ready to be killed. Might not take down, all their health if it's a battle cruiser or a carrier, but it sucks if you get hit with it. And certainly if you've got, your defense of your base where you've got tanks or something like that, and it just gets all of them, then all of a sudden you're in big trouble. So they're a very effective unit, but again, I suck at using them. I'm not good at. I'd have to like pay attention to that unit too much. Watch where it's at, watch what I'm doing with it. If I was better at the game, I would probably use it more, but I'm just not very effective. So I'm going to have that in my okay to use. If I see an enemy that's using a lot of stuff that I'm like, obviously, if I just throw a Defiler in there and push it on the front of their base, then maybe, or if I'm playing defense and they're coming at me with something, I might be able to do it, but that's about it. All right. We have another Zerg, the Devourer, I believe is what it's called. So you have to build a Mutalisk first, and then it goes into a cocoon. You spend more minerals and a little bit of gas to build a Devourer. It shoots an acid spore that I think over time like accumulates on whoever you're shooting and takes out their health over time a little bit more. They're much better in packs. You got to get, to me, you kind of got to get 6 to 8 to be meaningful here, and they can be susceptible to getting shot at quickly with, the scouts, the Corsairs, the Wraiths, Valkyries types things. So they're better to me in bunches. I do like to partner them with Guardians. I know some people probably hate those. I don't know. But when you get enough of them, it's kind of that fleet mentality for the Zerg. If you get enough defense with your Devourers or Scourge with the Guardian, it can be pretty effective, I think. But they're not my favorites. I'd say that I can use them though, so I'd say I like to use them when they're used in the right situation. So we'll see if it stays there, but it's kind of like, with a Dark Arch on with a Defiler, I really have to like figure it out and manage it. Whereas a Devourer, it's like, it's part of the army. I'm good. I can throw it out there. I will say sometimes I get annoyed with units like this, especially with the Zerg, where it's a me problem where I forget to put things on hold and say stay in your position, and I just have them sitting somewhere, and then all of a sudden like one thing comes in and hits them once and they follow it all the way to the base and get murdered because I didn't pay attention. So Devour is definitely one of those that I forget to put things on hold. So I won't put it against or hold it against the Devourer, but it is something that annoys me. All right, we have a Dragoon. So a Dragoon is probably about the second attacking thing you build with the Protoss. They are, I think, dead zealots or resurrected or something zealots, where they're put in this robotic body and they are kind of spider-like and march around. They shoot like a proton cannon or photon cannon, whatever the heck they're called, and they're pretty mobile. They've got good range, which is solid sometimes to help protect the base and to move around. I think they're really effective at defense. I can use them on offense and I like them, but they really tick me off whenever you've got to deal with going up ramps or through corridors because they get in the way and then they like can't find it. And then if you leave them alone, they'll like go all the way around the map to try to get where you need them to go. Or get in the way of other units. So that does drive me nuts a little bit. But I will say I think they're fun to use. Like I like having dragoons as a unit. Okay, drone. Drone is just okay to use. I mean, it's not a attack unit. It's just a getting minerals and gas for the Zerg. Uh, it's got a little bit of benefit because it can burrow, so you can hide it and come out later and build something or watch a base until something comes by. So it does have that as an advantage, but otherwise it's just a drone. All right, dropship. Dropship doesn't have any attack or anything. It is just picking up units and driving them places. It seems like it has a good bit of capacity, uh, which is good. It's not. It doesn't feel as effective or very fast to me, like effectively fast, where I can get it there in time to do anything meaningful. It's more helpful for me just to move like SCVs from one base to another on an island map or something. It's okay to use. I'm not a huge dropship fan. I lose these things all the time. Like when you talk about dropships and shuttles, I'll especially lose a dropship if I've got it like in a base and I happen to click over a command center and it looks like the same color scheme as my command center. I'm like, oh crap, there it is. So fire bats. Fire bats are flamethrower dudes. Usually second build for Terran little attack guys. Very effective, I think, on defense in like a bunker. If you've got enemies coming straight up at you, they in partnership with the Marines can be pretty good, and even attacking they can be good if you get enough of them and protect them and have medics and things around. So I like the fire bat. I will have. I don't want to get. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put it up here. I think they're fun to use. I like them. All right, ghosts. Ghosts are multi-purpose little attack guys for the Terrans. They're a little bit later build. You got to have science center and ops, covert ops, or whatever building, or maybe that's one of their upgrades. I can't remember, but anyway, you got to get the addition to the building to get them. Then if you really want to use them, you might build nukes, which you got to put on a command center. But they also have lockdown, which is a really effective tool that I am terrible at using. Like, if I'm playing a computer, the computer will kill me with lockdown, and I am terrible at deploying it. Like, if you gave me 10 ghosts in a base trying to defend it against a fleet of carriers or something, I would suck at it. I'd be missing hitting like an interceptor and lock down one interceptor versus a carrier. So I'm terrible at using it for that. I tend to like to use these in pairs if I'm doing nukes, so that I can fully destroy like a Protoss buildings. So if you talk about like a Nexus or something, if I can sneak them around the back end or something, you'll see like two little red dots for me because I'll try to hit two spots and keep them separate. So if one dies, the other one might live and still take out a good bit. I'm terrible at doing that though. Like I'm not very effective at managing it, so it's tough for me to use them. They have long range. They don't shoot a lot of power, but they are effective if you're creating a bunker and trying to make sure you can shoot down a guardian or something like that, or at least uh, put some shots on them. So ghosts are cool. I like them. I'll say I like to use it. All right, Goliaths. Goliaths are Terran. I don't use Goliaths enough. You gotta get to a little bit of a point where you can build them mid game or so. They're really effective with air defense. I think they can fight on the ground as well. Part of my annoyance is a little like a dragoon, where I can get stuck if I've got too many of them and trying to navigate spaces. But they're fun to use. I'll try to get four or something maybe in a base just to have mobile air defense if I need it. Not always for sure, but these things can tick me off. I mean, I remember playing one game where I had like a computer dead in the corner of a map, and I kept trying to attack with Sturg, and even if I brought my guardians over, those things were still uh, taken me out, and it was like an island map, so it was very hard to break their defense to fully take them out. Again, just because I'm probably not any good, but at the same time, they were effective, so they're good units. All right, Guardians. Guardians are again the Zerg, where you got to get the Mutalisk and put it in a cocoon. These take more gas than the Devourers and less minerals. Um, I can only, well, I shouldn't say that. There's times where I might have one or two of these and they've been effective because they at least just keep putting pressure from a distance on an enemy's defensive, like, having a missile launcher or having a cannon. Even if you're, shooting at tanks or something to try to lighten your load for your ground units to come attack. But then I also like to have a big group of these. If I can get really late game, I'll have 12 of these suckers going out with 12 Devourers and just trying to, uh, lighten the different bases and take out the mineral gathering of the second and third bases of groups. And then ultimately, if you have enough left, you can go and take it to attack a main base because they are effective. You do have to protect them a lot because they cannot fight against the air. You might have some Scourge with them or even some Mutalisks, I guess. But yeah, Guardians I'll say I like to use. Again, with the Devourer, I think in partnership, I'd like to use them. High Templar. The High Templar are, we talked about them a little bit with the Archon earlier. They've got very effective lightning, like group killing lightning that destroys me very much especially when computers use it. I try to see in the base where they are and plan accordingly. I might run, uh, some ground troops in to see if I can take it out beforehand, or a few of them out, but they tend to have a good bit of them, and they're scattered around and they do a good job of deploying. I, on the other hand, am terrible at deploying them. I'm terrible at using the lightning, much like a defiler. I'm terrible at using that. They also have the ability to do hallucination, I think is what they call it, and where you split, it takes a unit and makes two of them that look like a real unit, but it's not, so they don't actually cause any damage or anything, but the enemy can't tell, so they're like thinking they're fighting, two more of what they thought they were fighting, or you can use it to scout, that kind of thing. So I don't really use them that much. I'll say that they're okay to use. I think it's a very effective unit. Like any real StarCraft player would probably tell you, like, dude, that's like the best unit you can have, and I'd be like, I get it, but I just can't use it, or I'm not good at using it. All right, we got the Hydralisks. Hydralisks are the second of the ground build for the Zerg. Can attack air, can attack land with their spit. They have an upgrade to make it go longer and to be faster. And I've always liked to use them. I like to have a group of them, and I can attack with a large group of them. I feel confident if I've got enough of them that I can go up against, a good air group or even ground group. I think where I tend to struggle is if you run into like tanks or reavers that take out, a lot at once, and it's difficult to space them, and they're not gonna get up on those units like a Zergling would, so they tend to stay back. So you protect them a little bit in that regard, but I find them fun to use. I like to use the Hydralisks. All right, Infested Terran. You've got to take a queen over to a Terran command center of the enemy, and you gotta get it down to where it's like burning or in the red, and then the queen will automatically infest it. If I do that, I tend to pick up the command center, move to my base, and have the ability to create infected Terran. I don't often use them. There was one time more recently where I did, because I was just trying to take out some key, like we talked about the High Templar, take out that or Dark Archon I saw in like a Protoss base because I had, parasites in there from a queen. And you're like, man, if I could just get in there, I'd one, kill those things, plus two, do some damage to the interior of their base. So if I can, get enough of them in, I'll take out some cannons and things. So it did work, and those things were effective at blowing up. You do have to protect them, otherwise they'll blow up a little too early. They're costly to get at. It is kind of a nuanced situation when you get them. But I'll say that I like to use them if I have them. Like it's kind of fun and annoying for the other side, I think. All right, lurker. Lurker is a burrowing hydralisk that is mutated. So you got to build the hydralisk, you got to put it in an egg, you got to get a lurker out. I remember, I think they changed with remastered the animation of the lurkers, because I feel like they're when they were burrowed, it was much smaller looking and not as unique looking, or it was harder to tell where your lurkers were. Now it's a big blob in the ground, and so the lurkers I always like to use. They were really fun when Brood War came out. You're like, oh man, what are these things? Because the complaint I had was, what is the cloaking thing that the Zerg have? You've got Wraiths over on the Terran side. You've got Dark Templar on the Protoss side. The Zerg need to have something. What are they going to have? Well, they had the Lurker, so the Lurker was cool. They're very effective at guarding, I think, a base. Like, that's the common sense thing to do. Of, I'm going to put one around, the center of my base, so that it's going to take them getting scanning, or ability to check my cloaking in the base, and that's hard to do. So I'm going to have a couple of these around my middle of my base. Also, like the top of ramps where you got to get the units up. It's hard to get at, but if the enemy knows where they are, kind of has tanks, they can get taken out pretty easily. But the other part of this is, some people, I'm sure, and I'm terrible at this, are better at using them offensively, either in the way of attacking fully, like the front of a base, or just, I could imagine, boxing an enemy in, where you slowly kind of progress them forward and create a choke point of them not being able to get out and create another base, or making it difficult to do that, because they're a pain in the butt to deal with. But I find lurkers fun to use. Again, I will even this out here in a little bit, but I'll rank them in order when I get there. But I like them a lot. Marines. So Marines are the basic build for the ground for Terran. They can shoot air, they can shoot ground. They've got an additional range addition upgrade that you get. They also have and I don't use this or that much, where they have the injection, and then they, adrenaline or whatever, shoot faster, and I think their health goes down easier or something. Again, being a not good StarCraft player, I don't deploy that. I almost forget it exists. It's probably like a must-have thing to a good player, but I don't really know. I like to use them. I'm not going to say they're okay to use. I like to use them. I like to have them in bunkers, and I feel secure when I've got a good amount of bunkers with some Marines and fire bats in them, to at least stem the tide a bit. So yeah, I don't mind Marines. All right, the medic. The medic is built, I think, a little bit after. Well, maybe when you get the fire bat, the armory, but medic's got some useful things. So one, medic is very good when you just deploy them and you're attacking with Marines and fire bats. I don't do that a lot. I tend to not build like large groups of Marines and fire bats with medics, because I struggle to control multiple groups at once. I mean, I can do the whole, like, control one, control two thing. That's about the limit of my hotkey stuff, where I can move them together. They are effective for that. But the other thing that I use them for is the restoration. So I'll have, like I said, fleets of carriers, or not carriers, of battle cruisers, and get, if I'm playing the Zerg, they might put a lot of parasites on me, and if I take my battle cruisers back and go ahead and repair them, I'll use the medic to restore and get rid of those while they're there in a long game. But they also have an optical flare to blind the opponent, so you just now can't see much past your small window. So medics are pretty cool. I like to use them. They're a good addition. All right, the Mutalisk. Mutalisk is an interesting one, because it is your first air build with the Zerg. They fire, they have splash damage, so their little whatever they shoot bounces off multiple enemies and it does less damage each hit, I think. Got to have a good bit of them. They kind of, you can go through them like paper unless they're upgraded at all, and even when they do and you've upgraded, enemies, they're not very strong. They are annoying, and they can be annoying. And I think if you get enough of them, they can take out a good bit of a base, right? If you start attacking missiles and cannons and they get in there, they can be annoying for sure. They can also be a little bit of a distraction if you've got guardians, devourers, and things to throw them out there with them. So they can be useful. I'll have them in my like to use category. They're not super strong, but there are games where I've said, you know what, I'm just going to build a crap load of mutalisks and just throw them all at the base, and because you can build them faster. They do cost like 100, I think, mineral and 100 gas, so they're not super cheap. Somebody might say, who knows the game well, like, well, it's not really, for the speed at which they're going to get destroyed, they're not worth the minerals, but I don't know. But yeah, I like to use them. They're fine. And we have the observer. So the observer I'll just have as okay to use. It's fine. It doesn't shoot anything. It is cloaked and it goes pretty fast. You get upgrades to have a wider view and to go faster. You can build them quickly. You can build a good bit of them. I'll try to trail, one of these with most of my armies, or attach it to one of my stronger units in it, so that I've got something there to see if there are lurkers or wraiths or whatever, Dark Templar coming around. So yeah, it's definitely beneficial for that. I don't know if, because the people who make these games are much smarter than me, but I would like for almost every unit, like even a dropship or observer or shuttle, to have a small amount of damage they can inflict, just like an annoying amount of damage of shooting a laser or something. Though for an observer, it probably, my guess is it would be annoying because it would automatically attack and then give itself away, and somebody would shoot it. So that's probably why. But when I first started playing this game, I remember I was like, can I not? I'm like, at this base, I see it. Can I not just start shooting it a little bit? But that's fine. Overlord as well, kind of another example. So here we are, the Overlord for the Zerg. You have to have Overlords. This is your how you build out your army to build the capacity of the army. I think they each have 8 that is attributed to it. But they have to get upgraded. They're good at scouting around, but you got to upgrade them to go faster. You got to upgrade them to have a wider visual, and then to transport Zerglings and Hydralisks and Ultralisks and drones. And so you definitely need to do that when you're playing. Well, definitely you don't have to, but in an island map, it's helpful. But you need to get it so you can get to secondary bases and things. In a normal map, you may not have to, but you do want to have them probably be pretty quick, because that's how you detect the cloak for the other groups as well. So I try. The annoying thing with overlords is, like I mentioned with observers, I like them to trail certain units, so I just know that it's following that army as I deploy it. With overlords, and there's probably a way to do this and I just don't, but if I do the same thing where I'm like right clicking it on a unit, it picks it up, unless it's an air unit, if I'm doing an air attack. But if I'm taking Zerglings in or whatever, it's like, oh, picked up the Zergling and stopped. So or picked up the Ultralisk, even worse, and stopped and got killed. So that can be a little bit annoying, but I'll have it as okay to use. I don't mind using them. I might move some of these down as we go, but I don't mind to use them. I'm really lazy with overlords, actually, where I will try to be starting to build a big army, and I will have like my most secure base, and I'll just build them and like lump them up in the corner more than deploy them and have them looking around, because I just don't want to deal with it. But I should have them patrol or whatever. Okay, we have, let's see, we did the Overlord probe, and then, yeah, probe for Protoss is an okay to use as well. It's not as effective. It's like, The drone at least can get in the ground, and I can never remember which one's the strongest of them. I think each one's a little stronger than the others, or each one's a little stronger than another. But yeah, the probe itself, it's cool looking. I'll give it that, and I'll use it, but not only because I have to. All right, the queen for the Zerg. So the queen doesn't have any like formal firing power. You build it kind of middle of the game. Tend to see a lot of queens for the computers. I build like one queen. Maybe it's because in my mind there is one queen and not multiple queens. So fine. But it's more because I can't deploy multiple complex things in my strategy. If I have multiple queens, I might have two or something, but it's one mostly to parasite and to give some visual around where the enemy is, and it is really helpful. I should do it more, and I think you see the computer do it a lot. I'll tend to run, if I'm running a group of carriers or battle cruisers at an enemy, I'll end up with 4 or 5 of them with parasites. I don't know how helpful it is for them if I keep them all bunched together, but you do see it. Then they have the ability to spawn broodlings, which I will do occasionally just to tick an enemy off. And then infest command center. They have like an ensnare ability that I don't really use, and I don't know what that's for. I probably should. But I'll say that I have the queen in my like to use. Like I enjoy it when I'm playing with it. All right, Reaver. So the Reaver builds, and I can't remember what those little things are called. They'll probably pop into my head, but you have it much like the carrier builds interceptors. It has to build its little attack bombs that go along the ground. I think you start with, is it 5 and 8 again? Where you start with 5, you get upgraded to an 8, and then you can increase the scarab because it's increased scarab damage. You want to get this scarab damage, and then that thing is pretty brutal. But the problem is you have to keep investing in it. You have to keep building it, and they get destroyed. Like at least with interceptors on a carrier, they tend to survive, so you're not continuing to invest 25 mineral or whatever it is. But the 15 or whatever it is for the scarabs, you do if you're reverse firing. That said, you get them in a good spot, they can take out a lot of enemies and create a lot of splash damage. So it's a very effective unit. I don't build them a whole lot. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't really do it. I'll have them in my like to use. All right, Science Vessel. Science Vessel is for the Terran. Science Vessel is after you build the science facility. It's got a couple of useful tools depending on the opponent. The one it comes with is like the defense matrix, something like that it's called. I don't use that. I probably should. There's too many times where I've got a science vessel following battle cruisers into battle just to watch for cloaking. And I'm not going to use my energy for some reason. Now, the other two weapons it has are more effective, so that it's like Iridate, which takes out organic life forms, puts a little green cloud around them and takes them out, or at least takes down most of their energy. I think I'm trying to think like an Ultralisk. If it gets hit by it, does it die? I think it does, but I could be wrong. But it'll kill most things, and then it also creates a little damage around it. So I get annoyed by it when the computer's doing it to me, because I'll have like a group of Guardians together or Hydralisks, and it'll shoot the Iridate, and I cannot get that damn guy to get out of the way. And it's like, leave the group because you're killing him. It's annoying. So I'm not as effective at deploying it that way. You also have EMP Shockwave, which takes down shields or energy. So you could shoot battle cruisers and take out their ability to use their cannon, which I didn't even mention that with the battle cruiser. They got the cannons. I don't use the cannon a ton unless I really have to, but it's a good weapon to have. But on the science vessel, the EMP is really effective, I think, against Protoss. Like you want to head in and get rid of some cannons quickly, it'll do that if you use EMP. So also on carriers or whatever else. So it's a devastating attack. Science vessel, I will say I like to use. I'm better at using its powers than I am some of the things that okay to use. I won't put it in fun to use because again, it takes more effort for me to like figure out how to deploy and not screw things up. But I'd like to have them. Scourge. So you build these, you get two of them out of an egg. They're more gas than they are um, minerals, 25 and 75, something like that. They are better in groups. You can, take out probably a scout with two of them. Uh, if the scout doesn't shoot one down, and that's kind of the risk. There's always this like hesitation point, at least when I do it, because I'm probably messing it up. But it's like they pause and then get shot, and then one gets shot and the other one goes in. It hurts it very badly. But if you get a small horde of these, let's say you have like 12 of them, and you throw them into a group, if you like a carriers or battle cruisers, you can do a lot of damage. You gotta kind of time it right and make sure you're getting in around the back of them or something, so you don't just get them all taken out right away. But they can be annoying, and you can keep being annoying with them for quite a bit of time, especially if you've got a lot of gas. So for the Scourge, I will say let's start them. I like to use them, so I'll have them there. I'm trying not to get too many in there, but we'll even it out. It's just going to be that way because it's kind of shaping up that way. All right, the Scout. Scout is the first Protoss air unit. They start with everything that you need from a gun perspective. They've got their ground gun, which is pretty weak, but it does take out ground units, and then their air defense, I think, is a little stronger with their missiles. You can upgrade the sight of them, which helps for seeing the map, and then you can increase their speed. So once you get those upgrades, these suckers are pretty effective. Um, I'd like to have them in groups. They're not great to attack with, like a ground attack or attack the ground at a base. So I don't like them sitting there shooting at missile launchers or cannons very much. It feels like I'm kind of getting drilled. But when you're partnering with them with like carriers and saying, "Oh, we just need you to take out, wraiths or mutalisks or something," they'll do a pretty darn good job of that. So I will have the scout in. They're kind of close. I'm going to have them in fun to use. I like to deploy them. They're a good unit. Okay, they may move down. We'll see. We have the SCV, Terran version of the mineral gas getter. So he's going to be down in the okay to use as well. Cool looking. Looks like Robotech kind of deal. Jetfire from Transformers. But yeah, they aren't the most effective fighters or anything. I think they look cool though. So they don't have the ability of the drone to hide either. So puts them a little below. All right, the shuttle. The shuttle is the carrier for, well, I shouldn't say carrier, the unit transporter for the Protoss. You can upgrade its speed. When it's not upgraded, it feels slow as heck. It doesn't feel like it carries too much. I'll have it in my okay to use as well. There's not much to it. You got to have it if you're doing like island hopping, those types of things. But other than that, I don't tend to have too many shuttles around. All right. Siege tank or tank, and then it can become a siege tank if you get the upgrade. These suckers are pretty important, I think, for base defense. Now, I may not use them right. I try to get like 3 or 4 together, maybe more, depending on what the entry looks like to the base. But they have a lot of range, which is awesome. They have a lot of pop to them and a lot of power. Once you get them fully upgraded on their weapons and armor, they're really tough to deal with. As a tank, I don't like them. I never used them. I cannot recall a time I've ever attacked with tanks and just let them be tanks. I will, there's a few times where I might attack with them as tanks and then turn them into siege tanks and kind of box in the enemy as best I can, but not often. For the most part, I use them for defense. And then Um, they are, I think they also cause damage to your own stuff if you end up hitting something too close. So, like, a Zerg gets up on a bunker and you shoot it. I think it hurts your bunker too. So, that's the downside of it, just trying to protect your base with it. As long as you space it out, don't have enough to give them some room and be able to destroy the thing coming in, I think they're really good. Um, I will start them in fun to use. Ultralisks. So Ultralisks are the late big build for Zerg. These suckers are powerful. You can upgrade their armor beyond what the regular ground upgrades go to, and they also have a speed upgrade like a lot of the Zerg ground forces. Once you get those things, they are tough to deal with. You can really tank their base if you get enough of them in there. They are a little annoying when you are trying to go up ramps or trying to get through small spaces. Um, they can get stuck and get guys behind them stuck. So when I'm attacking with them and with a broader group, I try to put them more toward the tail end and let some of my guys get ahead, and then let them come from behind, and then have maybe some hydralisks or some behind them to protect them. But you gotta make sure you give them some space. But I like to have a group of them in there and attacking, so they're fun to use as well. All right, the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is an air defense unit for the Terrans. It shoots a lot of missiles quickly. I think it's got some splash damage, so it hits other units a little like the Mutalisk does. I never use these things, and I don't get them. I just don't get them. I'm going to put them in my don't like to use. I don't get what advantage I get from using them. Like, especially if I'm playing the Protoss, I don't know what I'm supposed to use them for. Now, I can see them being like useful in taking out a group of Mutalisks because I can shoot quickly. I'm shooting faster than it. I'm doing splash damage. But I don't know what I'm really getting above a Wraith with a Valkyrie in that scenario. And some good player would probably be like, oh well, duh, you use it for this, whatever. But yeah, it's not my favorite unit for sure. So a little like the Corsair, I don't quite get it. The Vulture. Vulture is like a unit I never use, but I think is kind of cool. You can upgrade its speed, which I think is a must if you're going to use them. And then they don't have much firepower, but they can shoot and move and run. Then they have the spider mine upgrade, which you drop spider mines and it protects the base pretty well, because once it comes up, now they only have like 2 or 3, I think they drop. But once it comes up, it crawls over to them and blows up a group. So you only get so many. You don't get more to lay down with it. I don't think I'd have more than one or so whenever I build, but there might be some people like, oh dude, no, if you build an army of them, they're really effective. Maybe so. I could see a scenario for that, but I don't really know. But I'll put them in the like to use category. When I do use them, they're fun. All right, Wraith. The Wraith is the first air build for Terran. It is you can get a cloak upgrade, you get more energy upgrade. It is an effective fighter. It has a little bit of a weaker ground attack, but for some reason, I don't know if it's just the way the gun looks, that it seems like it shoots better than a scout. On the Protoss side, might not at all. And then it shoots a similar gun or a similar missiles for the air as like a scout does. And so it is cloakable and can be a pain in the ass if you don't have something to find them when they're attacking you. And then it's a little easier for me to use as well, because I just know to throw on the cloak and let it go. But I do find that it's pretty rare where I'm in a situation where the cloaking really helps, because usually the enemy has an observer around or whatever. So I'm not very quick to see those and attack unless it's like an overlord, and knowing to get rid of that. But yeah, an observer, or if they've got, you're playing another Terran and they've got just a command center to scan you with, that can be a problem. But they're still pretty effective, I think, as defensive defensive, type flyer. So I'll have it in the fun to use. I like to use them. All right, that leaves us with 2. We've got the Zealot. So the Zealot's the first build for the Protoss. They are just the grunt, no range attack, but run up and shoot you with their little sai swords or whatever they have. And they are much more of a pain in the ass to me than I am a pain in the ass with them. I'm not good at like early build at all, and I'm terrible at saying like, oh, I'm going to build 8 zealots and go attack a base before they're able to do something. Yet it seems like every time the computer's able to do it on me, I'm like, how the hell did you build 8 zealots before I got 10 marines or whatever to protect myself? So they're more of a pain to me than they are something I like to use. But I do like them. I mean, I like to have them in an army. I don't think they're like my favorite, most fun thing, but I would have them I like to use. And then we have the Zergling. So the Zergling is probably the weakest attacker in the game from a health standpoint. You have them first build with your spawning pool with your Zerg. 2 of them come out of the egg like we had earlier. They are awesome once you get the speed upgrade, and then once you get a hive or whatever the layer is, no, it's the hive, I think is the last one. But you can get, and I don't remember the name of the upgrade, but it's like claws where they attack really fast, and you don't have to tell them to do it, like inject them like a marine or anything. They just go at it. So I find late game hordes of Zerglings fun. Like it's fun to just go in, and they're fun early if you're just trying to do a Zerg rush. I know that's always been a thing, but once you see them like start to take out those buildings fast, and you partner them with some Hydralisks and Mutalisks, they can be pretty devastating. So I will have them in my fun to use as well. Okay, so this is probably pretty close to where we'll be. We'll take the last couple minutes here to order them. And if I need to move any up or down, I will do that. But I think this is pretty balanced for the most part. So we'll go from there. All right, Valkyrie and Corsair. I'd have the Corsair above the Valkyrie because it does have that disruption web. I like groups of Corsairs more than I do groups of Valkyries for some reason. Maybe just I like Protoss a little bit more in that regard. I don't know. But we'll keep those there. And then I am going to I'll have the shuttle down there and the drop ship up by it because they don't really do anything. I'll have the SCV, the probe, and the drone there. And then I will have I'll have the brood down here. I'll have him below the drone just to split those up a little bit. And then we have the Overlord, we have the Observer, High Templar, Defiler. Okay, so I'd have the High Templar above these 2 guys. And then I'd have the Dark Arch under the Defiler, and I'd have the Defiler over the Observer. That seems about right. Okay, Zealot's going to be higher up somewhere, so I'm just going to throw them up there. Vulture Scourge. Let's see if I can find one that I put toward the bottom here of like to use. Infested Terran's probably farther down. And in fact, to balance it out, I'm going to put him below the High Templar because I'd actually have that above it. All right, so Vulture Scourge. I'd have the Vulture above the Scourge. Devour, I'd move down. Okay, I'm having to think through what I'd prefer here. I think I would like... because they're just so different in use. Like I'm sitting there going like, oh, I like the Science Vessel, but then I'm like, well, do I really like the Science Vessel that much? The Arbor, really cool to like cloak some other things, but do I really like it that much? Probably not. Whereas, I use Marines more, and Zealots and things. So Ghosts, I'm going to move down because I suck at it. Again, it's like I'm not going to use Lockdown that much. They're fun. They're fun to, nuclear launch detected all the time, but it's yeah, part of that's a nuke along with the ghost. I'm just gonna move it up for now until I think about it more. Reaver, I don't use as much. I'd use the Devourer more. I'll move the Guardian down with the Devourer. The Queen, I like to use the Mutalisk. I'll actually have below the Devourer. And then Arbiter over the Queen. Medic I don't use as much as some of these. I'd have the Medic down here maybe. I'll have the Ghost over the Reaver actually. And then Marine, Zealot. I'll give the Marine a little bit more credit because it can shoot the air. Zealots are stronger for sure. Okay, now let's figure out where the Science Vessel goes. Science Vessel, I would have. It's kind of like a little bit like a Queen to me in that mode of not really attacking, but yeah, I'll have it just below the Queen, just above the Queen, because Irritate can be an effective weapon. I'm not that bad at using that. An EMP can really take out the weapons. Okay, fun to use. I'm gonna move the Zergling up. I like them when they're maxed out. Tank, I'm gonna move up. Tank's one of my favorite. Lurker, I'll move up. All right, I like Ultralisks more than Scouts. Hydralisks, I'll use these over Goliath. Firebat moves down. Dragoon, I probably like a little bit because there's not. They just take up, again, they take up a little too much space sometimes when I'm attacking, and it gets annoying. So I don't put them first. Or they like keep moving around. And like, just hold, calm down. Same with Goliaths. That's what annoys me with them. Hydralisk, I'll have a little above the Zergling. And then Dark Templar. They don't attack the air, which I don't love that. I'll have it down here to split up the Zerg a little bit. Lurker's fun. Archon, I'll move down to like here. I like the Lurker a little bit more, and then the tank. And now the question of carrier and battle cruiser. We're about an hour, right? Yeah. Okay. I prefer carriers because they have all the interceptors. It feels like there's more chaos. Now, one caveat to that is I'm sure if I played like an actual human players probably target carriers better in a one-to-one combat. Like if you were fighting battle cruisers versus carriers, they know to target one and take it out, versus sometimes when you're playing the computer, it feels like they're attacking interceptors too much. Like you wouldn't naturally do that. I think they do unless you tell them otherwise, but that's not necessarily the case. So that could switch if I was in a different tactical situation, I'm sure. But I think this is pretty close to what I would say my preference is for these characters. Anything that's in like fun to use, favorites to use for sure I like, and then like to use is probably the same. And then okay to use is more a function of either it doesn't do a lot or I suck at using its special abilities. And then don't like to use is I just don't really get the purpose in the way that I play. So just those, two down there. But that wraps it up. So that's StarCraft 1 units. I've never played 2, so I don't know those units. But these units have always been great. So game still holds up today.